What's going on, Washington fans? I am Josh Taylor, and welcome to the Bleacher Report stream. Washington squeaks out. It was an ugly one. It was 20-16, but I'm here today to go through some performance grades on the game yesterday. If you've seen one of my streams before, you know this isn't my usual setup. I'm actually still in Virginia. I flew from Austin, Texas to Virginia for the game. So real quick before I get into grades, I'll drop some polls for y'all, show some stats and stuff like that. The atmosphere was incredible for, what we expected. A sellout game, finally back in FedEx, new ownership, just a refreshing start. It was a little bit rainy, so that kind of sucked. But outside of that, the stadium was amazing. The pregame, everything, tailgates were on point, exactly what I expected. FedEx looked like how it used to back in the day, since 2012. That was the most exciting game I've been to. I'm just talking to the fans and stuff like that. So like I said, I'm going to drop some polls for y'all. We're going to go through some grades. I'm going to talk about Sam Howell, the defense, of course, offensive line. There's a lot to get to. It wasn't pretty. We wanted a blowout. We expected a blowout. The Cardinals are a really bad team. They seemed like they were selling everything before the season started. So we expected this to be like a dominating win. But to be honest with you, I haven't seen this team, be good enough in a long time to say that, yeah, we're going to blow out a team. We're going to dominate a team. We don't have that yet. We still have some work to do. This team is still a work in progress. So I'm going to go through some grades. We're going to talk about it because I am hopeful. I rewatched the game last night. I got back home at 8 p.m., rewatched it because it is different, being at the stadium, seeing everything play out, but then going home, rewatching the broadcast, all 22 and all that stuff. So I want to pull up my screen, show y'all some stats. We're going to go through it, but I'm going to drop a poll for y'all as soon as I change this over. But let me bring up ESPN. And of course, the stats don't always tell the story. There's a lot to talk about with, breaking down the tape and what we really saw. So, of course, first, I'm going to talk about Sam Howell, 19 for 31, 202 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. And of course, in the running game, 2 carries for 11 yards and had that clutch touchdown near the end there. There's a lot to unpack with Sam. Yes, you can bundle it with the offensive line. But I'm going to give Sam Howell I'm going to give him a B-. I'm going to tell you why. Some might think that's high. Some might think that's low. Let me know what you think. I'm going to drop the poll for y'all asking you what grade would you give Sam Howell. You can drop your exact grade in the chat, but I'm going to go ahead and send out the polls A, B, C, or D. I did not put F because I don't think it was that bad. If you think Sam Howell was an F, we've got a lot to talk about. But to be honest with you, I'm treating this year with Sam Howell like he's a rookie. Yes, I know he got the 1 start, against the Cowboys. He's 2-0 as a starter in the regular season. And he didn't lose a preseason game as a starter either, unless you want to, the Ravens game last year, not this year, but regular season, he's a 2-0 starter. So I'm taking that. I'm not mad at that. Yes, I'll talk about the offensive line, but with Sam Howell, what I saw, there was some good and there was some bad, but it's fixable. With Sam, it seems like, the wide receivers are open. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get through those progressions. Yes, it was rainy. I see here in the chat, LUL Sean, I think that early big hit and weather hurt Howell yesterday, but overall good performance. I agree. I was on that side where he got hit, towards that end zone on the opposite side, towards the Washington side. He got hit on the Arizona side. When he got up, I was like, he's definitely got a concussion. There's no way. First off, Kaiser White, former Eagle, dirty hit. And then he had another dirty hit late in the game or second quarter. Yes, I think that had something to do with it. They said he cleared concussion protocol. Cool. But still, I think that rocks him. That kind of takes everything away. Then you have the rain. So it wasn't a favorable passing game by any means, but still, when I saw, he made some solid throws and there were some drops, especially Logan Thomas. It's not all in Sam Howell. There was some, he drove down the field a couple times. Antonio Gibson fumbled it. So there's a lot there. Sam did a lot of good things, but this was a bad Cardinals defense outside of Budda Baker. Cam Thomas is good. Zaven Collins is a guy that, I was pulling for to get here, but he's just kind of one of those tweener guys in the draft. Do you put him on the line? Is he a linebacker? But with Sam, he does hold the ball a little bit. I see C Carter 421 says Sam holds the ball too long, then panics and takes a sack. That's one thing. He got sacked 6 times yesterday. 6 sacks for 46 yards. And he had that fumble that was costly. That was a touchdown. That was the only touchdown the Cardinals got yesterday. Out of the 16 points, 10 of them came from our turnovers. So that's all I really need to know about our defense, which I'll talk about. But with Sam, he does take some sacks. I'd say half of them were his fault, half were the offensive line's fault. Three were his, 3 was offensive line. But there is some good. And a lot of players have said this. Once he gets hit, once he makes a mistake, he comes back. He washes it off. That's super important as a quarterback. You do not see him getting mentally defeated to where he just looks like he's lost it, like all confidence is lost. And that happens in the NFL. There's so many quarterbacks that once they get hit, I mean, honestly, Joe Burrow yesterday. Joe Burrow is one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL, but he was getting hit. He's coming back from that injury. It's a mental thing. You could tell like he wasn't all there yesterday. Daniel Jones last night against the Cowboys. Good God. Micah Parsons took the soul out of that man. The whole Cowboys defense did. You could just tell the whole team just fell apart. The whole offense just had no confidence whatsoever. They were completely out. So that's what I like about Sam, though. That's why I'm saying a B-, because it could have been worse. It could have been, throwing a ton of interceptions. I know he had the one, he had the fumble. But outside of that, he gets rid of it. He washes his mind out. He gets back in the huddle. They say he's confident in the huddle. And he just says, all right, like that play's done. What are we going to do now? And he did find some good passes. He hit Terry when he needed to. He started with Jahan early, which I'll look at. Like I said, Logan Thomas dropped some too. There was a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of things that if this team cleans it up, this is a 17 to 20 point win yesterday, if you take away the turnovers and such. So let me check the poll, see what y'all saying with Sam Howell, who, once again, I think he did pretty good. Okay, a little bit of mix here. C, 54% says C, 43% are saying B, which is right around a B- for me. So I agree with y'all. I don't disagree whatsoever. I'm interested to see what Sam Howell does. And honestly, I really liked Eric Bieniemy's play calling. I'm going to do some video breakdowns once I get back home on my YouTube channel, JTFB, really breaking down what I saw out of Eric Bieniemy too. A lot of misdirection, a lot of spreading out the offense. But Sam Howell has to get rid of the ball quicker. He has to trust his progressions. He's going through his progressions just fine. It's just you see that hesitation. You see that he's thinking about it. He just has to learn to pull the trigger. Yes, there's going to be some mistakes. There's going to be mistakes if you hold on to the ball too, though. And we saw that yesterday. So Sam needs to learn to, and I don't think it's a confidence thing. He's still learning a very complex offense. Very complex offense. Like, it's not like 3 or 4 words. It's like 9 or 10, and there's a bunch of colors and letters and numbers, and it's a lot. So I'm very hopeful. I think after a first, regular season game this year, I feel good about Sam. Like I said, the defense wasn't the best. He could have been much worse. He could have been better. But I'm treating him like he's a rookie, and out of all the rookies yesterday, he would have been one of the better ones. Looked better than Kenny Pickett, who actually got a full season last year. So Sam Howell, B-, C+, I'm not mad at it. And, of course, I'll talk about the running game because we have the running game here too. I'm going to leave the Sam Howell grade up a little bit. I'm going to talk about the offensive line. Don't worry. The rushing game, Brian Robinson, 19 carries, 59 yards, no touchdowns. He did have the receiving touchdown. Antonio Gibson. This guy cost me a parlay yesterday because I had over, 50 receiving and rushing combined. So, I feel like that was very reasonable because I thought we were going to get Antonio Gibson out in the slot. I thought we were going to get him out wide. That's something I see y'all talk about in the chat here too. He said, Town Hall Mayor said, I'm disappointed they're not splitting AG24 out wide. Same. I think it's coming. It's a natural thing for him. He played wide receiver at Memphis. He should be fine out there. But what I did see yesterday was Curtis Samuel. He got 1 carry, but there's a lot of Curtis Samuel happening behind the line of scrimmage with screens and stuff like that. A lot more than there was Antonio Gibson, especially after he fumbled it. Like I said, you drive down the field, you cannot have that Antonio Gibson fumbled. It reminded me of that Chargers game that I was at with the season opener. Antonio Gibson, he cleaned it up last year, but you cannot start the season with a fumble like that. But overall, the running game, I think what we are lacking is that long-term burst, which is why I wanted a guy like a Tyjair Spears that came out of Tulane. Looks like very promising. Got a lot of touches for the Titans yesterday. Or a Keaton Mitchell or a Dwayne McBride, someone like that. I feel like Brian Robinson, Chris Rodriguez are very similar. I think Chris Rodriguez is going to get more touches coming up soon too, especially if Antonio Gibson keeps fumbling. But also, segue to what y'all want to talk about. The offensive line is, in fact, terrible. And if you know me, if you follow me on Twitter at Josh Taylor FB, or you do check out my YouTube videos, but shout out to everyone that said hey at the game yesterday. Love y'all. Gosh, I love our fans. I'll go ahead and end the Sam Howell poll. Majority say C, but it's very close with B. So appreciate y'all. And I can't wait to see this one because it's going to be ugly. I didn't even put A in here. What grade are you giving the offensive line yesterday? B, C, D, or F? I did not put an A because there's no one that actually thinks it was an A yesterday. But the running game, I also, when I went back and watched this, and like I said, you can kind of see it at the stadium too, depends where you're sitting at. There really wasn't much going on in the run game. We use a lot of inside zone. That's what we do heavily. We don't really do a lot of outside runs, which is what I want to see with Eric Bieniemy, like how he really changes that, because we haven't seen much of it. But last year we were a heavily inside zone team, which is why I really want a speed guy out. And that's what Antonio Gibson is supposed to be. He is not a guy who's going to run at the line of scrimmage. He is a guy who needs to get outside zone runs, whatever you want to do. I don't care. Powers, whatever, counters, anything. He is a guy that needs to be outside in space, like flat out. He's not a guy that needs to be, finding holes in the line of scrimmage. That's what Brian Robinson and Chris Rodriguez is for. But at the same time, if Antonio Gibson's on the field, you know what's coming. Like, hey, they're going to run outside because that's the only thing he can do. Or if he runs in the middle, he's going to fumble it. And that's the problem. I want to say it's like 80% of his career fumbles come within the A gap and the B gap. So between the tackles, between the center and the guard on both sides. Like, that's pretty much where a majority of his fumbles are. So the offensive line has to do a better job of also opening up some holes. We saw it in the preseason. I haven't seen it yet. I didn't see it yesterday. In the run game, they need to do a better job of squaring up their blockers and turning them. Thanks. Shout out to the chair I'm in, the office chair, because I can show you. They need to square things out and create these opening lanes. You can't just hold a guy, straight up square under his pads, because they can still, get off the blocks, rips, do whatever, close those holes. I did not see many running lanes yesterday for these guys. And I think Brian Robinson can break some, long ones. I'm an Alabama guy. I watched this guy for 4 years. He finally got his chance that his final season at Alabama. And go back and watch that Cincinnati game in the playoffs where he ran all over the Bearcats. He has the ability to get downfield. He does. Does he have that long-term, burst, that speed? I don't know. He didn't really at Alabama, but I think he might be able to here. But the offensive line has to do a better job. Now you want to talk about the offensive line and Sam Howell. The offensive line does not protect very well. And this was a very mid defensive line we went against. There was guys getting sacks yesterday that I have never heard of. Yes, I know Cam Thomas. Yes, I know Zaven Collins. But there's other guys that were getting their name called, doing a little Daniel Garcia dance. Shout out to AEW after sacking Sam Howell. Like, I don't get it. This offensive line has to be better. And then Sam Cosmi went out with a concussion. He came back. But Andrew Wiley was bad yesterday. Andrew Wiley was probably our worst offensive lineman yesterday, and he has been for a majority of things. O-line, shout out to K. Johnson, 127. The O-line was better than the Giants. That's the one positive I can say. The offensive line was better than the Giants. And Bleed Burgundy, Terry definitely wasn't 100% yesterday. And he possibly was concussed, Sam Howell, after getting hit by Kaiser. You never know. But this offensive line has to do a better job. But like I said, Sam Howell also takes sacks that he doesn't need to. He holds the ball too long. And when he moves, he sometimes moves the wrong way. So he has to work on his pocket presence, his pocket awareness, but also that mental trigger. You need to have that ball out of your hands by 3 seconds. One thing I will say about Sam in the offensive play calling I saw yesterday, there's a lot of, not really even just play action, but a lot of times where Sam Howell would get the ball and roll out like a lot of boots and move to just one side of the field. I like that. It's kind of hard to explain without showing it to you, but I'm going to show you. But that play where he got concussed, he was trying to do this. But when you roll out, and Mahomes does it a lot, actually, so I think it's just an Eric Bieniemy play calling thing, or at least Pat Mahomes did it last year. He goes over and just kind of it spreads it out. Like, all of your routes are pretty much going to one side of the field, but it's at different levels. So there's going to be somebody open within those levels. You're not going to have someone, cover, unless it's man, then you just have to beat your, DB off your release. But in a zone, there's not someone that's going to be, covered the entire time on one side of the field. It's hard to explain, but I'll show you in a video. But I did like that. But once again, Sam Howell has to get things going. That clock's got to be ticking. You have at most 3 seconds in the NFL to get rid of the pass. So offensive line sucked. Let me see what y'all saying in the polls. I want to see how bad this is, by the way. Yeah, majority D and F. 48% said D, 38% said F with the offensive line, and I agree. Leno was decent. Sadiq Charles had a couple bad moments. There was a couple times where Sadiq Charles and Nick Gates had miscommunication and let through. There was a time where they had 3 rushers and they got to Sam Howell. There's no reason that should ever happen. Nick Gates just wasn't blocking anybody, and then Sadiq Charles thought he was going to be blocking somebody, and it didn't happen. I can't remember. It might have been Cam Thomas. I forgot what side Cam's lined up on. Town Hall Mayor said, was Wiley this bad with KC last year, or did Mahomes disguise that deficiency? So he started the season really bad. Wiley did. And it's not like Wiley has been like a Rashawn Slater of a tackle his whole career. He hasn't been. He's been decent. He's been like an average tackle. He's an undrafted guy, wasn't like some first round draft pick. He started the season really bad, but about that midway point, Wiley got a lot better. But yeah, your quarterback does help out your offensive line. As much as you want to talk about your offensive line helping out your quarterback, you also can't be rolling out and putting the offensive line in a bad situation. Like, you need to have that ball out. There's only so much you can do, especially for mobile quarterbacks. Like, I don't know where you are behind me. I don't have time to turn around and look and see, like, all right, where's Sam at? Is he running or what's he doing? So you just have to really, they have to help each other out at the end of the day. 6 sacks is inexcusable, especially against this team. The Broncos defense, mostly secondary wise, not really too worried about their defensive line. But once again, I wasn't worried about the Cardinals defensive line. He can't take 6 sacks next week. That's end of the line. Let me go to receiving a little bit. I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. Because like I said, we did have some drops. We did have some big catches, though. Curtis Samuel, like I said, was used a good bit, targeted 5 times, had 5 catches. Curtis Samuel is very underrated. I scream this all the time. Logan Thomas, 8 targets, 4 catches. So many drops, especially big-time drops, like chances that would have kept drives going where we had to punt. So that's what I'm saying. These are stupid things that we're shooting ourselves in the foot. Cole Turner only had 2 targets, and that 1 catch was beautiful, by the way. Across the middle, once again, a big-time catch, fully extended. That's what Cole Turner does. He has great hands. He had the most touchdowns in college football at Nevada his final season. He had 10 touchdowns, I believe. So I think it's time that we start. I'm not saying bench Logan Thomas, because there was some good catches by Logan Thomas too. But Cole Turner needs to get more opportunities. I don't care if it's 2 tight end sets. I know he's not the best blocker at tight end. Another thing is pass protection. We need to see more of that. There's a lot of times where these running backs are going out for passes. Sometimes we need to let B-Rob and Chris Rodriguez and Antonio Gibson sit in that pocket and take a linebacker. Straight up. It's not cute, but at the end of the day, it's effective because our offensive line's not good either. So tight ends need to block better too. Logan Thomas doesn't really block that well. Cole Turner doesn't really block that well because he's just a receiving guy. And the running backs need better pass protection, or I would say even more pass protection. We don't see that a lot. Something I want to go back and really count how many times we actually had pass protection. But receiving wise, Terry wasn't 100%. Still looked great. 2 catches, 31 yards, had a 15.5 average, had that 19-yarder. Great. 4 targets. I didn't expect Terry to go off. Jahan Dotson was getting targeted heavily often, and I told y'all Jahan Dotson at the end of the season is going to be the most productive wide receiver on this team, not even just because Terry was hurt. Jahan Dotson is a target magnet, and he catches everything, and he's very productive. 5 catches, 40 yards, doesn't really scream production, but he had 7 targets, which was second to Logan Thomas, and it was early and often. And with what I want to see with these quick passes in the quick passing game, and how Eric Bieniemy really draws up his schemes, Jahan Dotson's going to be open a lot across the middle. Sam just has to trust his eyes and trust his progression and get the ball to Jahan. I hate to say it. So offensively, if I had to give the overall offensive grade, man, I'm going to say C+ just because the offensive line weighs it down so much. Once again, Sam Howell, I'm going to say a B-. Running game, only because Antonio Gibson, I'm going to say a C. Outside of that, they just didn't really have much to work with. We did run it a good bit. We had a lot of attempts. But then the offensive line was just so bad. I'm giving the offensive line a D. So I think overall the offense was a C, and we can't have that. It's the stupid mistakes. It's the drops. It's the penalties too. Good God, how many penalties did we have yesterday? That really just killed a lot of the momentum of this offense when the defense was just feasting. So I'm going to go over to defense, but overall, I think the offense, this was the first full game, guys. I get it. Like I said, I'm treating Sam like a rookie. I don't know what y'all are doing. because he only got that one game last year in the preseason. I'm treating him like a rookie. This offense has a ways to go. The offensive line is going to kill us. The running game is going to be good enough to win games, but this defense is going to help us long term. But real quick, what grade are y'all giving the offensive line? Once again, majority said D, and then second place was F, so not far behind. And I'm going to talk about the defensive line because the defensive line deserves an hour to talk about. I'm not going to spend an hour, obviously. I only got like 10, 15 more minutes. The defensive line is getting an A+. The defensive line was wreaking havoc, and I have some stats for y'all that I pulled up this morning, by the way. First off, Jonathan Allen, top 3 defensive tackle in the league. After all the games yesterday and last night, this was a stat that came out this morning. Top 10 defensive tackle pass rushing win rate so far in the NFL. Number 10, Devontae Wyatt. 9, Jaron Reed. DeForest Buckner at 8. Grady Jarrett at 7. Chauncey Golson from the Cowboys at 4. Or Todd, I guess, at 4 with Fletcher Cox and David Onyemata from the Falcons. Number 3, Christian Barmore. Number 2, Jalen Carter, which I still don't know how we let him go to the Eagles, by the way. Ridiculous. They have way too much talent. Fletcher Cox and Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. But the number one defensive tackle win rate when it comes to pass rush in week 1, son of a gun, Jonathan Allen. Highest win rate in pass rushing, guys. And he was feasting. He had a great game. And it won't always show up on the stats, but that last, I think he had, I don't know if they credit him like a full sack or not. It'll show me on here. But after that last big play he had, I honestly, and like I said, I'm an Alabama guy. I've watched him play when he played high school football in Virginia. I love Jonathan Allen. He was credited with that sack that really took the breath out of them. 3 quarterback hits yesterday, but he was so hyped. I have not seen John Allen like that in a very long time, since like his Superman sack against Texas A&M at Alabama. Jonathan Allen was on fire. And it also helps that Montez Sweat had, once again, there's something about season openers. He had the best game of his career against the Jaguars last year. He comes back, says, guys, I'm not done. All the talks about Chase Young being hurt, not picking up his 5th-year option. Guys, this is my year to get paid too. And I think if he plays like this all season, you have to pay Montez Sweat. 1.5 sack, 2 forced fumbles for Sweat, 5 tackles, and 2 tackles for a loss. Montez Sweat was all over the place yesterday. There is just something about a defensive line killing quarterbacks and stopping the run in the backfield that drives me crazy. I love it. It's one of my favorite things about football is watching a defensive line, especially as edge rushers, get under pads, show their bend, and just wreak havoc in the backfield. Montez Sweat, John Allen's all over the place. Dron Payne had a lot of big plays too. I think he recovered a fumble, at least. They'll tell me on here. But outside of that, defensive line, amazing. And I'll drop a poll for y'all. Who do you think had the best game on the defensive line, though? Because like I said, John Allen, highest win rate, had a lot of big plays, had a sack. Montez Sweat getting some turnovers. In my opinion, I'd have to go with Montez Sweat. 2 forced fumbles, big moments in the game. That third quarter, when it just seemed like it started pouring down raining at halftime, a lot of people went to the concessions. They were like watching it on the TV there. I was one of them for a little bit, like half the third quarter. When it stopped raining and we came back out to the seats, like we were all like, this game does not feel good. This feels like one of those games where Washington just loses for no reason. And sure enough, the defensive line led by Montez Sweat came out and just took over the game. I know it's an old saying. I know it's a passing league now, but I think it still stands true that defense wins championships. And if you want to win games, you go back to the Eagles game last year. You go back to these big games that we win. It's because of our defense and this defensive line. This is why you draft so many guys in the first round. That's why you pay John Allen and Dron Payne, and you're likely going to pay Montez Sweat. Is he going to get Bosa numbers? No. I mean, he's not Bosa. But at the same time, Montez Sweat is really good. He's a freak athlete. He has the longest wingspan I've ever seen in my life, and he knows how to get to the quarterback. And outside of defensive line, linebackers, Jamin Davis had 6 tackles, 4 solo, 1 tackle for a loss. I think he played like 68 to 70% of snaps yesterday. Maybe it was closer to 65% of snaps yesterday. I can't remember all the numbers. But then Cody Barton looked pretty good. There's a couple times in coverage, Barton got beat by Ertz. But I think Ertz dropped 1, and he had a couple other catches. But still, linebacker core passed for me. They didn't give up some big time, like long runs like they did against like the Lions last year. These games where you just can't have that. Much better in coverage than I've seen in the past. Like I said, Jamin Davis was a force. He was just getting to the ball as much as possible. But Cameron Curl, speaking of guys that need to get paid, this is his year to get paid. 10 total tackles, 8 solo, 1 tackle for a loss, and a pass deflection. Cam Curl was a guy who was playing with the purpose yesterday. And it seemed like every time there was, a short little, dunk off pass like Rondell Moore or Michael Wilson or whatever, Cam Curl was there like in a heartbeat. He meant everything he did yesterday. Like he was laying the hammer on some guys yesterday. He's one of the hardest hitters on the team, honestly. I think this is once again a season where you do pay Cam Curl at the end of the season. Montez Sweat and Cam can both get paid, by the way. And I'll say this too. Y'all can blow up the chat. I want to hear your takes on Chase Young. You honestly couldn't really tell that Chase Young wasn't playing yesterday. Like I think it was fine. James Smith-Williams looked good yesterday. Casey Toohill looked good rotating in. I like Andre Jones a lot. So not a thing on Chase, but at the same time, our defensive line is still really good without him. At least we're not in the same boat as the Giants. Yeah, we are not in the same boat as the Giants. I guarantee you that. I think our defensive line is much better than them. I think everything is better than the Giants, honestly. Daniel Jones looked atrocious. But secondary, Forbes, of course, didn't have the interception. So close. He ended the game, 4th down, the pass breakup across the middle. He ended the game. He almost had that pick. Percy Butler dropped the interception too. Really good play by Percy too, because he wasn't ready pre-snap and he just quick turned his hips and started running with the wide receiver. But Forbes, shout out to Forbes. Good game yesterday. Didn't give up a lot of catches. I mean, Dobbs really couldn't do much of anything because of the defensive line, but Forbes was breaking up passes, especially that 4th down. Like that's, if he would have intercepted that, I was wearing my Forbes jersey yesterday too, by the way. I would have gone nuts. Like that place would have erupted if he would have got his first interception like that. But I'm gonna look at the Cardinal stats for a little bit too, because I just want to see exactly what we did there. And like I said, guys, their defense wasn't that good, but their offense was pretty daggone bad. Josh Dobbs, 21 for 30, 132 yards. He got sacked 3 times for 18 yards. The rushing game really surprised me because James Conner, 14 carries. I thought they were going to run it a little bit more, not really, have Dobbs throw it as much, especially in the rain. But only 62 yards by James Conner. Keontae Ingram could not run at all. -4 yards yesterday is terrible. Those were the times where like Deron Payne, John Allen, Sweat were coming through the line and just wreaking havoc. So let's see. Montez Sweat got a majority of the votes for who was the best defensive lineman yesterday, 78%. I agree. So secondary wise, I'm giving them an A. Honestly, the whole defense gets an A. Like the defense won that game with the momentum, with the big plays, stopping, big plays, not even just like the 4th down conversion, but, turnovers, the sacks, tackles for losses. Defensive line won that game. The whole defense did, honestly. So defense gets an A. Everybody gets an A on defense. Can't speak for the offense. But last poll, we got a few more minutes here. I want to hear what y'all's biggest concern is after week 1. Is it the offensive line? Is it the turnovers? Is it Sam Howell taking these unnecessary sacks? Because like I said, it's not always the offensive line. Sometimes it's Sam or Logan Thomas. I just threw him in there. I couldn't think of a 4th one. And Logan Thomas's drops were killing the vibe at FedEx for sure. Like he can't drop those, especially as a veteran tight end. But looking forward to the Broncos just a little bit. I'm not going to talk about it a lot, but just looking at it, from what I've seen, this offense has to be better first off. So I think that's what we're going to see a lot of in practice this week is them working with Sam. And it might just be like more of these quicker underneath throws, RPO, play action, just getting it out early, just being able to go through 1-2 progression and throwing it to one of those guys. Nothing too complicated. Like I said, this is a very complex offense. But at the end of the day, it's got to get better fast, especially the offensive line. Offensive line has to open up some running lanes, and they have to learn how to protect Sam Howell a little bit better because it was just ugly. It was ugly all the way around. But Sam, once again, shows his heart. And you can see it. Like, Sam is a passionate dude. When he scored on that run, when he ran it in, once again, like, that was towards my end zone. And he just threw that ball. I mean, the picture, the team got a great picture of him, by the way, too. Like, when he's in the end zone, like, celebrating. Like, he was like, look, I got beat up today, but I don't care. I'm going to put the team on my back. I'm going to run this thing in. I don't care if I get hit at the goal line either. Like, just, I'm going for it. And that's what Sam does. And people were saying, especially like fantasy football, like experts, Sam Howell is not a running threat. I think he is. And it's not even just like, in the middle of the field in the red zone. He's a really good runner. So shout out to Sam Howell for fighting through it. His first game of the season as the, quarterback one. Like I said, I'm treating him like a rookie this season. So I'm not treating him like he's a guy that's been here for a long time. But there's a lot to work with. A lot of good things with Sam. There's a lot of bad things that he needs to work on. So it is a work in progress. But overall, a lot of y'all think that the offensive line, 78%, is the biggest concern after week one. We'll see how it looks against the Broncos. Like I said, a lot to work with. It wasn't pretty, but it was a win. It was a win at FedEx in front of a crowd that was dying for a win. We haven't lost under Josh Harris, and we haven't lost with Sam Howell as starting quarterback in the regular season. So I'm going to take it. I'm never going to complain about a win. I'll complain about losses. So if we lose to the Broncos, y'all hear from me. Like I said, appreciate y'all tuning into the Bleacher Report live stream. It's been fun. Always enjoy talking to y'all, hearing y'all's thoughts, especially with these polls and everything, and y'all dropping some stuff in the chat. And J-Lo Frisco said the run game was the worst part of the game. Honestly, we abandoned it when everything was going well. It did, but at the same time, we weren't getting any big plays from the running game. And people in the stadium were begging, like, we need to throw the ball. We need to stretch the field. We need something big. Offensive line was not blocking for Sam, and they were not blocking for the run game to open up any holes. So, there's a lot that we need to get better at, because we have the Broncos going to Denver, and then we have the Bills coming to town. If we lose both those games, we have a lot to look at. We absolutely should beat the Broncos. I don't know we will. So, like I said, appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Taylor FB, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, JTFB. I'm going to break down some videos this week as well. Me and my guy Rio and a couple other guys will be doing some streams here on Bleacher Report throughout the season, pregame, postgame reactions. I'll be doing some more grades and stuff like this. We got a lot coming up here in September, especially. So appreciate y'all tuning in. I'll see y'all next time here on Bleacher Report. I'm Josh Taylor. Peace. Underdog Fantasy is the best place to participate in all of your fantasy contests, whether it's the NFL, MLB, PGA Golf, NBA, even college football. This user-friendly app, you can win up to 20 times your money in a single night. And my favorite part is that when you sign up in your first deposit and you use my promo code JTFB, they will double your first deposit up to $100. Now, how does it work? You pick lower or higher on stat projections that Underdog Fantasy gives you, whether it's passing yards, rebounds, points, you name it. And for each selection, say you want to select 3 people or 4 people, your odds go up based off of how many you select. My favorite feature, however, is sometimes I want to make 4 selections and I'm not feeling too confident in all of them. I love taking advantage of the pick'em insurance to where if I miss one pick in my contest, I still get paid out on lower odds. So sign up today, download the app, and use my promo code JTFB to get up to $100 in your first deposit.